In 24 days, on July 1st, 2026, a deadline goes into effect that most seniors between the ages of 55 and 64 have never heard of. If you receive food stamps, what the government calls SNAP benefits, and you are in that age range, you are now required to prove 80 hours of work, volunteering, or job training every single month. If you cannot prove it, your food assistance stops. No warning, no grace period, gone. The Center on Budget and Policy Priorities estimates that more than 1 million older Americans will lose their food assistance because of this rule. And right now, in Arizona alone, 51% of SNAP beneficiaries have already lost their benefits. I want to be absolutely clear about where this information comes from before we go any further. Everything I am covering today comes directly from the Congressional Budget Office, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, AARP, the USDA Food and Nutrition Administration, and CNBC. This is not speculation. This is federal law that took effect in stages beginning December 2025, with the most damaging provisions hitting this month and finalizing on July 1st. The people who understand what is happening right now have time to act. The people who find out after the deadline are the ones who open their refrigerator next month and realize the card does not work. Before we go further, subscribe to this channel right now and turn on the bell. What I do here is track exactly this kind of change, new federal rules, new deadlines, new cuts, and bring them to you before the window closes. The July 1st deadline I am about to explain in full detail is one that the mainstream news has not covered clearly enough for the people it actually affects. If you know someone between 55 and 64 who receives SNAP benefits, this video is for them. Share it before you finish watching. Hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and let me explain exactly what is happening and what needs to be done right now. To understand this crisis, you have to understand one law and one number. The law is the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, signed by President Trump on July 4th, 2025. The number is 54. Under the old rules, adults aged 55 and older were completely exempt from SNAP work requirements. That exemption no longer exists. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act raised the work requirement age from 54 to 64, meaning every American between 55 and 64 who receives SNAP and does not qualify for a separate exemption is now legally required to work, volunteer, or participate in approved job training for at least 80 hours every single month to keep their food assistance beyond a 3-month limit. This is, according to policy analysts at multiple institutions, one of the most significant changes to the food stamp program in its entire history. The Congressional Budget Office confirmed that this single law cut federal SNAP funding by $186 billion through 2034. AARP called it directly. In a statement, AARP Vice President of Health and Families Megan O'Reilly said, and I want to quote this precisely, "Every older American deserves the security of knowing they can put food on the table. But for many people in their 50s and early 60s, those caring for a parent, living with health issues, or struggling to find work, these new requirements could mean the difference between keeping and losing critical food assistance." That is AARP, one of the largest and most respected senior advocacy organizations in the country, saying this plainly. And most of the people it affects still do not know this rule exists. Let me walk you through exactly what the 80-hour requirement actually means in practice, because it is more complicated than it sounds, and the paperwork burden alone is catching people completely off guard. To prove you are meeting the 80-hour monthly requirement, you must submit documentation to your state's SNAP office. That documentation can include pay stubs or timesheets from an employer, a written statement or letter from an employer confirming your hours, contact information for a supervisor who can verify your hours if asked, tax returns if you are self-employed, or documentation from a volunteer organization confirming your hours and participation. The hours do not have to be at a single job. They can be spread across multiple part-time jobs, volunteer positions, or approved training programs. but they must total 80 hours, and you must be able to prove it with paper documentation every single recertification period. For a 61-year-old with a chronic back condition, limited transportation, and no home internet access, assembling and submitting this paperwork every month is not a minor inconvenience. It is a genuine barrier. Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health Associate Professor of Public Health Nutrition Dr. Cindy Leung reviewed the research on this and stated directly, "We know from past research that increasing work requirements for social safety net programs leads to people losing benefits, not more people being employed. The paperwork does not create jobs. It creates disqualifications." Now I need to explain who is exempt, because this is information that could save benefits for people who qualify and do not know it. You are exempt from the new work requirements, even between ages 55 and 64, if you have a physical or mental health condition that prevents you from working, if you are caring for a child under the age of 14, if you are pregnant, or if you are receiving disability benefits from Social Security or another federal program. The exemption for disability is critical. Many older adults in this age range have conditions that qualify them: chronic pain, diabetes complications, heart conditions, mobility limitations, but have never formally documented those conditions with their state SNAP office. If you or someone you know is in this age range and has a health condition that limits their ability to work, contact your state SNAP office immediately and ask about applying for a medical or disability exemption. You may qualify and not know it. What is no longer exempt is equally important to understand. Veterans between 55 and 64, who previously had an automatic exemption from work requirements, lost that protection under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. People experiencing homelessness in this age range lost their exemption. Former foster youth in this age range lost their exemption. These were groups that federal law specifically protected from work requirements, and every one of those protections was eliminated. Let me give you the state-by-state picture, because this crisis is not uniform, and some states are far ahead of others in enforcing these rules. Arizona has already seen 51% of its SNAP beneficiaries lose benefits, according to Center on Budget and Policy Priorities data analyzed from state records. Louisiana has seen 20% of its SNAP recipients lose benefits. Tennessee is at nearly 16%. Virginia is at nearly 15%. Illinois is implementing enforcement right now, with state officials estimating that up to 150,000 people could lose benefits in that state alone. California and New York, which had previously been approved for waivers that delayed implementation, are beginning enforcement this month, June 2026. The USDA has confirmed that by July 1st, all remaining state waivers under the previous guidelines must be terminated. There are no more delays coming. Every state, every eligible recipient, July 1st. The food bank system is already feeling the pressure in ways that should alarm every family in America, regardless of whether they personally receive SNAP. Feeding America, the nation's largest network of food banks, has stated directly that SNAP provides approximately 9 meals for every 1 meal that a food bank can supply. That ratio means that when SNAP cuts happen, food banks cannot absorb the gap. They do not have the capacity. California food banks reported in late May 2026 that it is currently serving 6 million people per month, more than at the height of the COVID pandemic, when it served 4.5 million. The system is already overwhelmed before the July 1st deadline has even fully hit. Now let me tell you exactly what you need to do right now, step by step, if you are between 55 and 64 and currently receiving SNAP, or if someone you love is. The first step is to contact your state SNAP office today and ask 2 specific questions. First, ask when your next recertification date is. For many recipients, the work requirement kicks in at recertification, meaning if you recertified recently, you may have a few months before you need to prove compliance. But you need to know that date now, not when the letter arrives. Second, ask whether your specific situation qualifies you for any exemption under the new rules. Be specific. Mention any health conditions, caregiving responsibilities, or other factors that might apply. State offices are required to inform you of your options, but they will not automatically flag exemptions on your behalf unless you ask. The second step is to start documenting your hours immediately if you do not qualify for an exemption. Every hour you work, volunteer, or spend in an approved training program should be tracked starting now. Write it down. Get confirmation letters from employers or volunteer coordinators. The USDA has confirmed that documentation requirements include employment verification forms, written statements from employers, or contact information for supervisors. Keeping this documentation current means that when your recertification comes, you are not scrambling. The third step is to call the USDA SNAP hotline at 1-800-221-5689. This is the official federal helpline. When you call, you can ask about your specific eligibility, exemption options, and what documentation your state requires. You can also find your local state SNAP office through benefits.gov using their SNAP State Contact Directory, which lists every state agency and their contact information. The fourth step is to be aware of what happens if your benefits are cut and how to appeal. If your SNAP benefits are reduced or terminated and you believe the decision was wrong, for example, if you believe you qualify for an exemption that was not applied, you have the right to request a fair hearing from your state agency. That right exists under federal law, regardless of what state you live in. You must request that hearing within a specific time frame after receiving a termination notice, typically 10 to 90 days depending on your state. Do not let that window close without acting. There is something else I want to address directly, because I know that some people watching this are in a situation where the 80-hour requirement is simply not achievable. Their health does not allow it. Their circumstances do not allow it. And they are going to lose their benefits in July, regardless of what they do. For those people, the Food Bank Network, as strained as it is, remains available. The Feeding America locator at feedingamerica.org allows you to find your nearest food bank by zip code. Many local churches, community organizations, and senior centers also operate food pantries specifically for older adults. The benefits do not have to stop meaning access to food. But you need to know where those resources are before the cut happens, not after. Here is the complete summary of everything covered today. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act raised the SNAP work requirement age from 54 to 64, effective December 2025, with full enforcement by July 1, 2026. Adults between 55 and 64 must now prove 80 hours per month of work, volunteering, or job training to keep food assistance beyond 3 months. More than 1 million older Americans are projected to lose benefits from this single change alone. Nationwide, 4 million fewer people are receiving SNAP compared to last year. Arizona has already lost 51% of its SNAP beneficiaries. Illinois, California, and New York are implementing enforcement right now. Exemptions exist for disability, caregiving for children under 14, and pregnancy, but must be requested and documented. The USDA SNAP hotline is 1-800-2215-689. Your state SNAP office can tell you your recertification date and exemption options. And if your benefits are cut incorrectly, you have the right to request a fair hearing. Subscribe to this channel. Share this video with every person you know between the ages of 55 and 64 who receives SNAP benefits. Share it with their adult children. Share it with anyone who works with seniors, at a food bank, at a senior center, at a church. The July 1st deadline is 24 days away. The people who have this information right now have time. The people who don't find out when the card stops working at the register, I will see you in the next one.